Get Inspired Facebook, and welcome to Life Inspired. Today is Friday morning, and we get here on Facebook Live every Friday morning at 9:30. And our guest for Life Inspired Stories today is Erin Simpson, our very own. She's one of our team members on Inspired Team. And I thank you for coming, Erin.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So just to remind Facebook world what Life Inspired Stories are all about, these are people's stories about following God. So life was going along, and there was some ... moment in your life that something happened, like Seinfeld's yada, 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 that kind of turned and pointed your feet, and now you're walking an inspired life. So we have 3 questions to ask you. Everybody usually has more than one turning point.
Yes,
sometimes they were already walking with God, and then God turned them to a certain direction that he wanted them to go, or sometimes people weren't walking with him at all, and they turned them towards God. So I don't know what turning point you're going to talk about, but whichever one it was, what's the backstory?
So the backstory really is I was raised in a home where we went to church on Sundays, but we didn't really pursue God at all.
Okay.
And then when I was 14, my mom received Christ and started living totally different than how she had before. I should say by that point she had been remarried. My parents got divorced when I was younger, and then she, by the grace of God, found an awesome man who then also came to know Jesus before I did. And so they just started living life totally different than how we ever had. And so when I was 16, I went on a retreat, and I ended up meeting Jesus during that weekend away. And it totally just rocked my world. But I needed to change from who I had been, because I wasn't exactly the kindest person. I was pretty frustrated by just divorce that had happened and other things in life that had just led up to some teenage angst.
Okay.
And so by the time that I was 16 and on this retreat, I just had a lot of why do I need God? What's he really going to do? Is there really even one? And so at that point, he just grabbed a hold of me using the story of the prodigal son and as a need for me to return and to come home. And as this girl stood up and just shared her testimony, I felt like she was telling my story about the things that she had gone through. And then at that point, I totally started changing how I was living. I changed the friends. And as a junior in high school, to change your friend group and to change people was a big undertaking. But I knew that I had to do something drastically different. And then I ended up going to a Christian college, and that was really where God started to really act and move in my life and really led me down the path where then it was actually October of my freshman year when I met Josh, my husband. But at the time, we were not each other's type at all.
Interesting.
I mean, at all. We had no interest in each other aside from being friends. He had come from a background similar to mine, and we instantly just clicked, and there was something where we could just talk for hours on end about anything, and it was an incredible friendship. And so for 2 years, we were just best friends. Like, we would talk every night on the phone. I was in Warsaw, he was down at IU Bloomington, and so it wasn't like we had close proximity at all.
Right.
But we just became these great friends that could share, like, the intimate details of each other's lives, but there was no romantic feelings whatsoever.
Right. And even for him.
For him.
He says today, I didn't feel that way either.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, for both of us. And my parents were like, you two
He's
are...
right in front of you. Yeah.
You two are meant for each other. His dad was like, I mean, what's going on with this girl? Are you two going to start dating? And we're like, no. Like, why can no one see that, like...
We're just friends.
We're just friends. That's all that there is to it. And then we would pray for each other and with each other. And, I mean, really, we were just pushing each other to live for God and to pursue righteousness. And it was an incredible thing. And then came the time where he actually felt it first. And he then was like, I need to talk to you about something, but I'm not ready yet. So for 2 weeks, he didn't talk to me at all.
Oh.
For 2 weeks.
Which is weird, because he's your best friend.
He's my best friend.
And so where does that go?
Yes. And so I was just like, what in the world could he be going through that he's not willing to talk to me for 2 weeks. So the beach was always our place. It was the place where we would go every Sunday after church because he lived in Argus at the time.
Okay.
So he would drive up here and we would go to church together, and then we'd leave and go hang out at the beach all day. And so
Nice. I want to do that.
that's right. And so he came up and we went to the beach, and I mean, he was just like, do you know what I brought you here to tell you? And I was like, no girl in their right mind is going to actually say, I think you might have feelings for me, you know? Of course it had crossed my mind. And so when he finally got around and mustered up the courage to tell me, I had already thought through it all, and I was like, this is never going to work. Like, we're not going to mess up our friendship to try to date each other. Because at that point in time, I just wanted my best friend. And so during that same time, he was praying about, he had felt God calling him out of, he was down at IU Bloomington pursuing education and to be a teacher. And he felt like God was calling him into the ministry, which is not a degree that they offer at IU Bloomington. So he was also praying about where he would go to school in the fall. And he had come, and so we'd been praying about it, and because I was his best friend, I was praying for him about the decision.
Right.
And so he had decided on Johnson Bible College in Knoxville, Tennessee, which was 8 hours away from where I was going to be, which was another big reason. This is why this isn't going to work.
Right.
You know, who wants to be 8 hours away in a dating relationship in college?
Right.
And just over the course of like the next month and a half of summer, God just continued to work on me and to show me like, no, like this is him, and you will see that I have it planned out, and he needs to be 8 hours away from you. So as we are going back to school in the fall, I finally tell him like, okay, let's try it, but I totally, you know, we can't mess up our friendship over this. And God just really used the time away for him and I, for God to be able to refine Josh and I both separately,
Okay.
while also bringing us together. And so then when we got married in 2002, it was this time of us just wanting to be able to serve each other and to live the life that we felt like God was calling us to.
That's so cool.
But given our backgrounds and the fact that both of us were coming from divorced families, we were kind of rewriting the book because we knew that like divorce just wasn't going to be an option for us, and that in order to avoid that, we had to pursue one another. And so that has been like our constant thing and our constant motto. And every year we have chosen then like something that we felt like God was calling us to do. And I know probably, you know, the question that a lot of people give us is, well, how do you know? Like, how do you each know? And so honestly, over the last 18 years, we have always prayed separately for a given length of time, whether it be a week or 2 weeks, depending on how big the topic was. And we refuse to talk about it. So we won't talk about it during the time that we're praying, because I'm really good at being persuasive, and I know that I could persuade him to come to my side. And so we found out very early on that we just needed to do it separately. And over the course of our entire marriage, and even during our friendship, like there's only been one time that we've ever gotten a different answer. And like Josh will tell you, he just wasn't ready to hear what God was actually saying. So it wasn't really even that we got different answers. It was more Josh wasn't willing and ready for what God was saying at that time. But so in praying separately about things, we've just been able to then come together and be like, so this is what I hear God saying. And it's so incredible that each time then the other person's like, yeah, like it's going to be scary and it's going to be hard, but I'm right there with you because...
So decisions like career paths and having children and other kinds of decisions like that is what you're talking about praying about?
Yeah, well, and actually with our children, there's, you know, those weren't always part of our plan. Those were always God's plan.
Didn't plan on 4 boys?
That's right. There were some surprises in there. So
I'm telling. The boys are watching.
That's right. The boys are going to watch this. So one of you was planned, and we're not telling you which one.
That's awesome.
So, but yeah, and so it has been so rewarding, though, to be able to know and just to rest in the peace that, like, God is there guiding it all, and it's always affirmed through Josh, or for him it's affirmed through me being able to say. And just recently, like, we've brought our oldest is 14, and so he wasn't sure what he wanted to do for high school and where he wanted to go.
Okay.
And so we just brought him into that, you need to
This
pray
is how
about
we do
it.
it, yeah.
And we're going to pray separately. And then when you have your decision, come to us. And then we'll talk about what we feel like God said to us too. And so, you know, he got to see the incredibleness of God giving each of us the exact same answer.
So if there's a turning point and ... point, would it be when he started to feel feelings for you, and that's when it was like, oh, dude, I got to go not talk to you for 2 weeks at all and pray about this? Would that be the turning point you're talking about today, or is there another one you haven't told us yet?
Yeah, I think that turning point for us, well, I think that there's been turning points constantly throughout, but I think that the turning point was really actively choosing to live life differently and to actively seek to do something that, even though we had no idea how to, we both came from homes that had parents that would yell and fight, and so after our very first fight, we're like, let's not do that. Yeah. Like, let's stop the yelling. And so it was hard, and it really is hard to not yell, especially in the very beginning, and to fight against everything that we had kind of learned through seeing our parents' marriages, but also realizing and recognizing that it didn't work that way.
Right.
And so I think that that's where, like, the ... is just that we're constantly, like, in each new season, we're just pursuing each other.
That's so cool.
But pursuing God first allows us then to pursue the other person and to be able to
Instead of seeking what you want.
Yes. Yeah. And our own desires are so strong that it's hard to always think about others first. But when we're thinking about God first, then it's so much easier to say, okay, Josh is next.
Right. That's cool. Okay, so when you first started talking about your childhood, and when you were 14 is when you noticed your mom got saved, correct? Mm-hmm. And you said, I don't remember, she found Jesus or something like that, and then when you were 16, I met Jesus. What is that? What does that look like? What does that mean, I met Jesus? Okay, really? Was he standing in front of you? You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah, so when I was 16, I had been, just hanging out with friends who we liked to drink, even though we were underage. We liked to stay out late. We would party. I would skip school a lot. We were the kids that just kind of hung out and did things that, weren't horrible, but also weren't obviously God-honoring by any sense of the word.
Weren't pushing you towards graduation and all of the things that you want to do in your life.
No, definitely not. And so with that, then my mom actually, like, signed me up for this retreat, but almost made it like, I'll let you do whatever you want the following weekend, which was to go to Chicago with some friends, if you will go on this retreat first. Because she just had so many people praying for me that I would come to know Jesus. And so when I was at the retreat, so there was the girl, like I said, who was sharing her testimony, and she was talking about how she had lived this life away from God and was into drinking and had friends that were into that and was partying on the weekends and not getting good grades. And as she's sharing all this, and then she talks about how the prodigal son, was eating what the pigs were eating because he was all about himself and he wanted his inheritance early. And then how he came running back, and the father goes out and meets him while he's still a long way off. And when she said that, like, tears just started rolling down my cheeks. Wow. And I'm not a crier by any terms. And so, as I started to cry, I was like, what is happening? Like, what is going on? Yeah. And so as I'm sitting there, like, God was just pounding on me and was just like, it's time. Like, I'm on the road. Like, I want to come to you. And I'm just still like, yeah, but that pig slop, like, it's
kind of tasty.
It's kind of, right. Yeah. But that's all that I know. Right. I don't know that I'm ready to totally. And as she just kept talking about, the love and the forgiveness, I mean, the tears just started to come harder to where...
That's what you wanted.
Yeah. And I got to the point where I couldn't even speak because I just knew that I had a father that was waiting for me, that wanted nothing more than for me to say, I want you to. Because he'd already chosen me. I just had to choose him back. And so as I was just waiting...
Wait, you have to say that again. He'd already chosen you, but you had to choose him back.
Yeah.
I love that. Cool. Sorry for getting all choked up.
No, you're good. But so for me, like, there was just no doubt that he wanted me, and that, like, now the decision was mine.
Right.
And so at that point was then where I had to, decide, was I going to go back to the life that I knew and that I also knew wasn't fulfilling and wasn't doing anything for me? Or was I going to take this and then totally change the way that I'd been living and the thoughts that come in?
Okay, so if the turning point gets you to walk an inspired life, and life is inspired now, so turning and changing the way that you'd been living turned into what? When you were 16, what did you start to do that led you to being that when you met Josh, you were praying about things and stuff like that? So what does inspired look like? What does inspired living look like?
Yeah, so, well, it looks way different now than it did when I was 16.
Sure.
But at 16, it looked like me going to youth group and me starting to, be kind to people that normally I would just write off. And, they weren't part of my group, or they weren't at the same level that I was, or they weren't in my league, all of the immature things and judgmental things that we do. And so I started talking to people that I hadn't talked to before. And I had one Christian friend that I knew of. There may have been others, but she was the one that I knew that was there and would pray with me. And we would call them car chats because we would talk in the car about God, because I still wasn't sure that I don't know that I want to broadcast all of this.
Right.
I need to find out more. And so it was an incredible thing that God just gave me her to be able to talk and to share with, and for her to share so much with me because she had grown up in the church and knew so much about the Bible. And then for me, it was seeking out His Word and trying to find, more and more scripture that just told me about, so who is God? And what is He like? And I know that God is love, but what does that mean?
Right.
And how do I have to respond then because of that?
Right.
So it was really seeking a lot more information then.
That's cool.
And stopping going to parties or throwing parties, and, and still keeping those friendships, but not engaging necessarily in those friendships. And that was a huge thing at 16, to try to totally change your friend group when, they had known me for who I was, but now I was saying, but this is who I am now.
That's not who I want to be.
That's no longer, who I want to be.
Right. So I heard you say that you wanted to engage in God's Word and get into His Word and find out who He was. And Sunday, we visited a friend's church. It was his birthday. And we visited a friend's church for his birthday. And the passage that he shared that just stuck with me was some verses from Proverbs chapter 4, verses 20 to 22. And we'll ask the guys to post this up. And it was basically, spend your time in God's Word, and His Word is healing. It literally heals everything about you that hurts or isn't working right or whatever. And I'm just so drawn to that this whole week, just about go into the Bible, read the Bible, see what God says to you. It's His love letter.
Yeah.
He adores us. And when you said He was already seeking me, I just had to choose Him back. That's where He's telling us. It's in His Bible. He's telling, I'm pursuing you. I'm following you. He's never left you. You know what I mean? Doesn't matter. Yeah. He was there when you were at the drinking parties. He's there.
Right.
He wasn't talking really loud in your head because this is what you wanted and you were ignoring Him, but He was there with you and He never let you go. So thanks for sharing your story.
Oh, yeah. Thank
so
you.
I want to another time have you back on because I would like to talk about SOS
Okay.
and how God turned you guys to doing that. So in the future, unless this is Josh's story when he gets on, I don't know. I'd kind of like to hear his story, just his own story before we do SOS. But some point, Summer of Service is a mission thing for youth in our area, and mostly junior high, more junior high
Yeah,
than high
junior
school.
high and high school.
Junior high and high school.
Incoming 6th graders through outgoing 12th graders
Okay.
are all welcome to come. It takes place at Bethel College.
Cool.
So it was just a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
So shout out to all you SOSers.
Yay! Thanks for watching SOSers. So yeah, maybe we could put a link for whatever y'all have on online about SOS if you have like a Facebook page or
Yes.
whatever you have.
Yeah, we
So
have our
let's
own
attach
website.
that. Yeah, and another time we'll have her on and tell more about that because we don't like these to run too long, so that you have time to watch them. So thanks for watching Facebook, Erin. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
I know, guys, if you, first of all, if anybody you know would benefit from Erin's story, we ask that you would share the story with them. And if you have other people that need to share their stories, that would be great. And if any of you would like to meet with Erin for coffee or lunch or whatever, I know that she would be thrilled and honored to meet with you
Absolutely.
too. So yeah, just message us here and we will set that up. So thanks for being here.
Thank you.
All right. Y'all have a great day and a great weekend,
Bye.
Facebook. Bye-bye.